Take a moment right now, wherever you are. Do not rush past this instant. Pause what you are doing, even if only for a few seconds. Let your breathing slow down naturally. Inhale without effort, exhale without pressure, and allow your heart to settle into stillness. This space you are entering is intentional. This message did not arrive randomly on your screen, and you did not click on it by chance. If you are here, there is a reason deeper than algorithms or coincidence. Before we go further, I invite you to stay fully present and to remain with me until the very end, because something meaningful awaits you there, something prepared specifically for those who choose not to leave too soon. If this message resonates with you even slightly, take a moment to subscribe so you can continue walking this path with us, and write a word or a short phrase in the comments that reflects what you are feeling right now. You may also want to share this message because someone close to you may be quietly waiting for the same reassurance you are about to receive. You may have come here searching for clarity without fully knowing how to name it. Perhaps your heart has been restless, moving from thought to thought, question to question, without finding a place to rest. Maybe you whispered a prayer that no one else heard, not even aloud, but deep within your spirit. A prayer asking for reassurance, a prayer asking for direction, a prayer asking for a sign that God is still listening, still present, still involved in your life. Sometimes those prayers are not dramatic or eloquent. Sometimes they are simply a sigh, a tear, or a silent thought formed in the middle of the night. And today, you are here, listening, reading, receiving. That alone carries meaning. There are moments when God answers not with noise, but with alignment, placing you exactly where you need to be at the moment your heart is ready to hear. Let me tell you something that matters more than you may realize right now. God sees you. Not the version of you that others see, not the one you present when you are strong or smiling, but the real you. He knows what you are carrying inside, the invisible weight that presses on your chest when no one is watching. He knows the responsibilities you shoulder without complaint, the disappointments you replay in your mind, and the quiet fears you rarely admit, even to yourself. He knows the questions that come alive late at night when the world is silent and your thoughts grow louder. Questions about purpose, timing, worth, and whether your faith is enough when it feels fragile. God is not distant from these moments. He is intimately aware of them. There are seasons when faith feels heavier than usual, when believing requires more effort than before. You may feel tired of being strong, tired of trusting without visible results, tired of hoping when circumstances seem unchanged. Even then, when words fail you and you cannot find the right way to pray, your heart continues to speak. God understands the language of silence. He understands the prayers formed through emotion rather than sentences. Nothing within you is hidden from Him, not confusion, not doubt, not longing. What you feel does not disqualify you from His presence. It draws His attention even closer. You may feel as though heaven has been quiet for too long, as though your prayers rose upward and vanished without an answer. That silence can be unsettling. It can make you question whether you were heard at all. But silence does not mean abandonment. God's silence is not absence. It is presence operating beyond what your senses can detect. There are times when God is working beneath the surface, shaping outcomes, aligning moments, and preparing answers that cannot yet be revealed without harming the process. Just because you do not see movement does not mean nothing is happening. Just when answers did not come as quickly as you hoped, When strength seemed to drain faster than it could be renewed, he remained close. In your tears, he was there as well, not merely observing them fall, but understanding each one. Tears you wiped away quickly so no one would notice. Tears you cried in silence because you did not want to burden anyone else. Tears born from disappointment, loss, frustration, or simply from being tired of holding everything together. None of them were wasted. None of them were invisible. Each tear carried a story, and he knew every chapter of it. Even in your confusion, when your thoughts felt tangled and your prayers felt unsure, he was there, steady while everything else felt unstable, patient while you searched for clarity. Every step you took forward mattered, even the smallest ones that felt insignificant to you. The days when getting out of bed felt like an achievement. The moments when simply choosing to keep going required more courage than you thought you had. You may have measured your progress by what you lacked or by how far you still had to go, but God measured it by your willingness to move at all. Each step, even when taken with trembling legs and a weary heart, carried meaning. Each moment you chose not to give up, even when surrender felt tempting, was an act of faith, whether you recognized it or not. Faith is not always loud or confident. Sometimes faith looks like persistence without certainty, like continuing to hope without evidence, like choosing to breathe and move forward when everything inside you wants to stop. Those quiet choices, made in moments no one applauded, mattered deeply. They revealed a resilience you may not yet fully see in yourself. God wants you to know something today that speaks directly to the places where doubt has tried to settle. You are not forgotten. Your name has not slipped from his mind. Your life has not been misplaced among countless others. You are not overlooked, even when it seems like others are moving ahead while you remain standing still. God's attention does not drift, and his care does not depend on your performance or your strength. And you are not alone, no matter how convincing the feeling of isolation has become. Loneliness can speak loudly, especially when you are surrounded by people who do not truly see what you are carrying. But loneliness is not proof of abandonment. It is often the space where God draws closest, even if his nearness feels unfamiliar at first. His presence does not always remove the weight immediately, but it sustains you beneath it. Right now, you may feel as though you are standing in the middle of a storm, surrounded by uncertainty on every side. The wind feels relentless, and the ground beneath you feels unstable. Life feels heavy, not because you are weak, but because you have been carrying more than most people realize. Responsibilities, expectations, unanswered questions, and unhealed wounds can accumulate quietly until everything feels overwhelming. The path ahead feels unclear, and the lack of visibility makes every step feel risky. You may wonder how long this season will last, or whether relief will come at all. But God is not watching from a distance, waiting for you to figure it out alone. He is present in the middle of it all, closer than the fear that tries to rise in your chest, closer than the doubts that whisper late at night. He is steady while the storm moves, unchanged by the chaos around you. There are moments when God's presence does not announce itself with dramatic signs, but reveals itself through endurance, through the strength that shows up when you expected to collapse, through the calm that surfaces briefly in the midst of anxiety, through the subtle reminders that you are still here, still breathing, still moving forward. God does not abandon his children in the storm. He meets them there. He stands with you in the rain, not promising that the storm will end immediately, but assure every unanswered question has been woven into something larger than you can currently perceive. The storm you are in is not evidence that you have failed. It is often the place where growth happens unseen, where roots deepen before anything visible changes. As you stand where you are right now, feeling the weight of uncertainty and the pull of fear, remember that God's nearness is not dependent on your awareness of it. He has been near you the entire time, through moments of strength and moments of weakness alike. In your struggles, your tears, your confusion, and your quiet perseverance, He has remained. Even now, as you listen and reflect, His presence surrounds you, steady and patient, inviting you to trust that you are held, that you are seen, and that you are not facing any of this alone. When everything feels unstable, when the ground beneath your life seems to shift without warning, and nothing feels secure the way it once did, God remains steady in ways that do not depend on circumstances. His nature is not shaken by change, loss, or uncertainty. While emotions rise and fall, while situations evolve and plans collapse, He remains the same anchor He has always been. When fear tries to take over your heart, creeping in quietly through unanswered questions and overwhelming possibilities, He becomes your refuge, not as a distant shelter you must reach on your own, but as a presence that surrounds you where you stand. Fear often speaks in urgency, pressing you to believe that everything depends on your ability to control outcomes. But God offers a refuge rooted in trust rather than control. He invites you to rest, not because everything is resolved, but because you are not carrying the weight alone. And when you feel too tired to continue, when motivation fades, and even simple steps feel heavy, He becomes your strength in ways that defy logic. Strength does not always arrive as sudden energy or emotional clarity. Sometimes it appears as quiet endurance, as the ability to keep moving even when you feel empty. God's strength often meets you precisely where yours ends, filling the gap between what you can do and what must still be done. Nothing you are going through is meaningless, even when it feels repetitive, delayed, or painfully slow. Meaning is not always visible in the moment, especially when you are inside the process rather than looking back on it. Every challenge you face is shaping you, stretching your capacity, refining your perspective, and teaching you things that comfort could never teach. Challenges reveal what lies beneath the surface, exposing both fragility and resilience. They force growth in places you might have avoided otherwise. Every delay is preparing you, even though delays are often misinterpreted as denial. Preparation is rarely comfortable because it requires patience, surrender, and trust in timing you do not control. Delays create space for maturity, wisdom, and alignment, ensuring that when doors do open, you are able to walk through them with stability rather than fear. Every closed door is protecting you from something you cannot yet see, even when it feels like rejection or failure. What feels like loss may actually be mercy, redirecting you away from paths that would have drained you, harmed you, or limited what God intends to build through your life. God is not finished with you. No matter how convincing the evidence against that belief may seem right now, you may look at unfinished goals, broken relationships, missed opportunities, or personal struggles and conclude that your best days are behind you. But God does not define you by incomplete chapters. He sees the entire story, including parts you have not yet reached. There is more inside you than you realize, more shaping new beginnings out of what appears irreparable. Where you see endings, he sees transitions. Where you see damage, he sees potential. Where you see weakness, he sees places where his power can be revealed most clearly. Restoration often happens quietly, incrementally, through small changes that accumulate over time. It may begin with a shift in perspective, a renewed sense of hope, or a subtle inner strengthening that prepares you for what is coming next. The process may not look impressive from the outside, but it is deeply significant within. Lift your head, not because everything is resolved, but because despair does not deserve the final word over your life. Lifting your head is an act of trust, a refusal to let present circumstances define your future. It is a declaration that what you see now is not all that exists. When you lift your head, you create space to see beyond immediate obstacles, to remember that God's work is often hidden before it becomes visible. You are not standing in ruins without purpose. You are standing in the middle of a process that is still unfolding. The pieces you believe are broken beyond repair are not obstacles to God's plan. They are often the very elements he uses to build something more authentic and enduring than what existed before. Even now, strength is being formed within you, clarity is being shaped beneath confusion, and purpose is being refined through patience. God remains steady while everything else feels uncertain, and his work within you continues, whether or not you can yet see the full picture. When everything feels unstable, when the familiar structures of your life no longer hold the way they once did, God remains steady in a way that does not depend on what is happening around you. Stability in the world is often conditional, tied to circumstances, people, or outcomes that can change without warning. God's steadiness is different. It is not reactive. It does not fluctuate with your emotions, your progress, or your setbacks. While you may feel as though you are standing on shifting ground, he remains the unmovable foundation beneath it all. Even when you cannot feel that foundation, even when fear convinces you that everything could collapse at any moment, his presence does not waver. He is steady when your thoughts are scattered, steady when your plans unravel, steady when your confidence weakens. That steadiness is not always dramatic or visible. Often it is quiet, holding you in place when you might otherwise fall apart. When fear tries to take over your heart, not all at once but gradually, through persistent worries and imagined outcomes, God remains your refuge. Fear does not usually announce itself loudly. It settles in subtly, shaping your decisions, narrowing your vision, convincing you to prepare for the worst. God as your refuge does not mean fear disappears instantly, but it means fear does not get the final authority over your heart. A refuge is a place of safety, a space where you are protected even while danger exists outside. And God offers that kind of shelter within your inner world, allowing peace to exist even when uncertainty remains. When you feel too tired to continue, when strength feels depleted beyond what rest alone can restore, God becomes your strength in ways that go beyond physical energy. There are forms of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix, weariness that comes from carrying emotional weight, spiritual tension, and long seasons of waiting. In those moments, God does not demand more effort from you. He supplies what you no longer have. His strength often manifests as perseverance rather than power, as the ability to endure rather than to escape. It may show up as a quiet resolve to keep going one more day, one more step, one more prayer. You may not feel strong, but strength is not always a feeling. It is often a function of grace sustaining you beneath the surface. Nothing you are going through is yet preparation often happens in hidden seasons when nothing outward appears to change. Delays cultivate patience, discernment, and emotional maturity, qualities that success alone cannot teach. They create space for alignment between who you are becoming and what you will eventually receive. Without that preparation, blessings can overwhelm rather than sustain you. Every closed door is protecting you from something you cannot yet see, even when the closure feels abrupt or unfair. Closed doors are often interpreted as rejection, but protection does not always feel gentle. Some paths look appealing on the surface, but lead to exhaustion, compromise, or loss of identity. God sees the full trajectory where you see only the entrance. What feels like a missed opportunity may actually be a safeguard, redirecting you towards something more aligned with your purpose and well-being. Protection is often misunderstood because it does not always match your preferences, but it consistently serves your future. God is not finished with you, regardless of how incomplete or fragmented your life may appear right now. You may be tempted to evaluate yourself based on timelines, comparing where you are to where you thought you would be by now. That comparison can create discouragement, making you feel behind or inadequate. But God does not operate according to human timelines. His work is not rushed, and it is not abandoned halfway through. He does not begin a process only to leave it unfinished. There is more inside you than you realize, more than what current circumstances allow you to express, more purpose waiting to be revealed through obedience rather than clarity. Purpose is often discovered through faithfulness in small, unseen moments rather than through grand revelations. More strength lies dormant within you. Strength that emerges only when required, strength that grows through resistance and endurance. More light exists within you as well, light shaped by compassion, wisdom, and understanding gained through experience. Light does not always shine loudly. Sometimes it glows steadily, influencing others simply through presence. Even if today you only see broken pieces, fragments of plans that did not come together, parts of yourself that feel damaged or diminished, God sees a future being rebuilt with intention. Broken pieces are not discarded in His hands. They are reassembled with care. What feels fragmented to you is often raw material for transformation. God specializes in restoration, not superficial repair, but deep, lasting renewal. Restoration does not erase the past. It redeems it. It takes what was painful, disappointing, or confusing, and weaves it into a story that carries meaning and strength. He creates beauty where others see only ruins, not by denying the ruins exist, but by working within them. Where others see failure, He sees foundation. Where others see loss, He sees potential for growth. Beauty in God's hands is not about perfection. It is about authenticity, depth, and resilience formed through experience. Lift your head, not because the journey is over, but because your perspective matters. Looking up shifts your focus from what is collapsing to what is being built. It allows hope to coexist with reality. Lifting your head is an act of trust, a recognition that what you see now is not the final outcome, and that even in uncertainty, restoration is already in motion. Do not let fear define your story, because fear is a narrator that distorts reality and limits possibility. Fear speaks in absolutes, telling you what will never change, what will never work, and who you will never become. If you allow it to shape your identity, it will convince you that your worst moments are your truest ones. But fear does not know the full story of your life. It only reacts to uncertainty and tries to protect you by shrinking your world. When you refuse to let fear define you, you reclaim authorship over your journey. Your story becomes one of growth rather than avoidance, of courage. Your existence carries value that is not earned through achievement or approval. It is inherent, woven into who you are rather than what you do. Along with that value comes a calling, not necessarily a single role or destination, but a way of being in the world that reflects purpose and authenticity. Calling unfolds over time, shaped by experience, growth, and obedience, rather than immediate clarity. You may not yet see the full picture of what you are meant to contribute, but that does not diminish its reality. There is a future ahead of you, one filled with hope, not because everything will be easy, but because meaning continues to unfold beyond your current circumstances. Hope is not denial of difficulty. It is confidence that difficulty is not the final chapter. The future holds moments of alignment, of understanding, of fulfillment that will make sense of what currently feels fragmented. Doors will open at the right time, not according to impatience or pressure, but according to readiness. Timing is not punishment. It is precision. Paths will become clear when you are ready to walk them, because clarity often arrives alongside courage, not before it. Seeing the path too early can overwhelm rather than empower. God reveals direction in steps, allowing trust to grow with movement. But trust is required, and trust is not passive. It is an active choice to rely on God even when understanding is incomplete. Trust God even when you don't understand the reasons behind delays, changes, or unanswered prayers. Understanding often follows obedience, not the other way around. Releasing what you cannot control is one of the most difficult yet freeing acts of faith. Control creates the illusion of safety while quietly exhausting your spirit. When you release control, you acknowledge your limitations and invite God's guidance into the spaces you cannot manage on your own. Placing your worries in His hands is not an act of avoidance. It is an act of alignment. Worry assumes responsibility for outcomes you were never meant to carry. When you entrust those concerns to God, you create room for peace to exist alongside uncertainty. Peace does not require the absence of problems. It requires the presence of trust. Return to His Word, not as a routine, but as a source of renewal. His Word is not merely information. It is formation. It reshapes perspective, recalibrates priorities, and restores what has been worn down by life's demands. It is there that strength is renewed, not always as emotional energy, but as inner resilience. Strength gained through truth is stable, grounded in something deeper than motivation. It is there that peace is restored, not as a temporary calm, but as a steady assurance that anchors you regardless of external conditions. Peace rooted in truth does not depend on circumstances. It flows from trust in God's character. It is also there that your true identity becomes clear. The world often defines identity through comparison, success, or failure. But God's Word speaks to who you are beyond roles and achievements. It reminds you of who you were created to be, not who you have been pressured to become. You were not created merely to survive this world, enduring one challenge after another without meaning or direction. Survival is often necessary in certain seasons, but it is not the ultimate goal. You were created to shine within this world, to reflect light in places where hope feels scarce. Shining does not require perfection or prominence. It requires authenticity and willingness. Light influences simply by existing, by being present in darkness without becoming consumed by it. Your journey, with all its complexity, carries value beyond your personal growth. Your testimony, shaped by struggle, perseverance, and faith, holds the potential to resonate with others who feel unseen or discouraged. Your faith, expressed through daily choices rather than dramatic, even the smallest step matters, especially when it is taken in a season where standing still feels safer than risking disappointment. Forward movement is not about speed, it is about direction. When you choose to move forward, you align your heart with trust rather than fear, with faith rather than paralysis. Even when uncertainty surrounds you, choosing to move is an act of courage that speaks louder than hesitation. God does not measure the size of your step. He honors the decision to take it. Even if you feel uncertain, even if your mind is filled with questions and your heart feels divided between hope and fear, that uncertainty does not disqualify you from moving forward. Uncertainty is not the absence of faith. It is often the environment in which faith grows. Faith is not clarity first and obedience second. More often, it is obedience first and clarity later. You may not know exactly where this step will lead, but you know the direction you are being invited to take. God does not require you to see the entire path ahead. He asks only that you trust Him with the next step. When you accept that you do not need to understand everything before you move, you free yourself from the pressure of having all the answers. You begin to walk not by sight, but by trust, allowing God to reveal the path gradually as you go. God walks with you, not behind you as an observer, and not ahead of you as someone unreachable, but beside you, present in each moment of your journey. His companionship is not conditional on your confidence or your consistency. He does not leave when you hesitate or pull away when you struggle. His presence is steady, patient, and personal. Walking with God does not mean the road becomes easy. It means you are no longer alone on it. He shares the weight of the journey, offering guidance when you are confused and reassurance when you feel overwhelmed. There will be moments when you sense His closeness clearly, and others when His presence feels quiet. But silence does not mean distance. He remains with you even when your awareness of Him fluctuates. His commitment to you does not depend on your emotional state. And when your strength runs out, when you reach the point where effort feels impossible and perseverance feels beyond reach, He will carry you. There are seasons when walking is no longer possible, when exhaustion settles so deeply that rest alone cannot restore you. In those moments, God does not demand that you keep going on your own. He does not shame you for your weakness or rush you through your weariness. He carries you through what you cannot endure alone. Being carried does not mean failure. It means trust. It means allowing God to support you in ways you cannot support yourself. His strength compensates for your weakness, not by erasing it, but by sustaining you through it. You may not feel strong, but you are held. And that holding is enough to keep you moving forward even when you are unaware of it. This is a new beginning, not necessarily because everything around you has changed, but because something within you is shifting. New beginnings do not always announce themselves with dramatic changes or immediate relief. Sometimes they begin quietly, with a renewed perspective, a softened heart, or a willingness to try again. A new beginning can start in the middle of unresolved circumstances, right where you are, without waiting for the perfect moment. It begins when you decide that the past does not get to define what comes next, when you choose to believe that God is still working even if progress feels slow. New beginnings are less about what you leave behind and more about how you move forward. They invite you to receive what God is offering rather than remaining anchored to what has already passed. Receive it not as something you must earn, but as something freely given. Receiving requires openness, a willingness to accept grace rather than striving for worthiness. When you receive, you acknowledge that God's work in your life is not dependent on your perfection. Believe it, not as blind optimism, but as trust rooted in God's character. Belief is strengthened when you choose to anchor your hope in who God is, reminding you of past failures, unmet expectations, and unresolved pain. It amplifies fear and minimizes hope. Returning to truth is an intentional act, a choice to remember what God has spoken rather than what fear suggests. Truth may not always be the loudest voice, but it is the most reliable one. When you revisit this message, you realign your heart with what is stable rather than what is shifting. God's love for you is constant, not influenced by your performance, your progress, or your setbacks. It does not fluctuate with your emotions or diminish with your doubts. His love remains steady through every season of your life, offering security when everything else feels uncertain. His presence is faithful, not because you are always faithful, but because He is. Faithfulness is part of His nature, not a response to your behavior. He remains present when you are confident, and when you are confused, when you feel close to Him, and when you feel distant. And He will never abandon you, not in moments of strength, and not in moments of weakness. Abandonment is not part of His character. Even when you feel alone, even when circumstances suggest otherwise, His commitment to you remains intact. If you believe this, say Amen, not just with your words, but with your heart. Let it be an inner agreement, a quiet decision to trust what God has spoken over what fear has suggested. Saying Amen with your heart means aligning your inner world with truth, allowing it to take root beyond emotion or circumstance, and walk forward with faith, not because the road is clear, but because the one who walks with you is trustworthy. Faith does not eliminate uncertainty. It gives you the courage to move through it. With each step, with each moment of trust, you continue a journey sustained not by your own strength, but by the steady presence of God who walks with you and carries you when needed.